Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm Ariel, Cassell, and I'm a team member of Family Values at Work. Today, we will be having a riveting discussion entitled Pay Leave Without Pay is Not Paid Leave. I am joined by some amazing and hardworking individuals from across the nation to talk about pay leave, why it is needed, and how it would optimally serve working families if pay leave for all is passed. For those of you in our virtual audience, please feel free to leave your thoughts, stories, and concerns in the comments from wherever you were watching. Before we get started, I wanted to give our guests a chance to introduce themselves. Permelia, let's start with you.
Hello, my name is Permelia Toney-Boss. I'm from Roselle, New Jersey.
And let's hear from you next, Yarrow. And let's hear from Yarrow next. Hi, Jerry. Thanks for joining the conversation. Heather, can you introduce ourselves to us, and then we'll go back to Jerry and then to Yarrow.
Sure. I'm Heather Arnet. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thank you for joining us. Jerry, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jerry Sandoval from San Diego, California.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. And Yarrow, can you hear me? Awesome. So we have Yarrow from New Jersey, Citizen Action, with us. And if we give her just a moment, I have a question that is aimed at her to get us started. One moment. Jerry, while we await Yarrow's audio, I'm actually going to start off with asking you a question. How important is getting paid while on leave to care for yourself and your loved one?
Well, we got to think about all these stuff, right? It is very important just because you got to be able to take leave and not have to worry about the family when you or your bills. So you are at an ease a moment there when you don't have to work and don't you got to concentrate on your family is where I'm trying to get at. So you sit there and you start processing whether you're getting your payment to pay the bills or not, and then you want to be able to enjoy your family at home, help out and all that. So a lot of times the pressure that it comes with it, it's got to be able to just concentrate on one thing. So it is a lot of pressure knowing that you're not getting paid and you are trying to help out at home, taking care of your loved one. On the other hand, if you don't have to worry about the payment issue, you just concentrate on the family, and at the end of the day, it is better on your body, your mind, and your family.
Right, you made a great point. There are so many people that are working while sick and trying to take time off to recover and care for their family. And nobody should have to make those choices between, oh, how am I going to pay the bills and how am I going to be there for my loved one or myself? You made some great points there. So to pivot to you, Yarrow, let's go back a little. So can you explain what is paid leave and why is it important to have legislation for this policy?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
No. I'm sorry, I seem to have some. Oh, you can? Okay, good. Yeah, so in New Jersey, we passed the second paid family leave program, public policy, right? Because otherwise, it's just about like if you've won the lottery in terms of your employer actually offering it to you. And that tends to be, white collar workers, higher earners that do get paid leave from their employer. And so what we found is that we needed to create legislation, we needed to create a program so that it was going to be something available to everybody. And so in 2008, we passed our state family leave insurance program. And so that meant that anybody who met the minimum earnings would be eligible for our paid family leave. So it really meant that more people working at all levels of the economic spectrum should have been able to access our paid leave program, except what we found was that our low wage replacement, which at the beginning of the program, it was 66% of your average weekly wage, and that became a barrier.
Definitely, and I noticed that is a lot of a barrier for a lot of people. So to kind of emphasize that point, Permelia, can you tell us from your own personal experience how important is it to have enough time and money in order for you to recover while on leave?
It's extremely important. I was diagnosed with lung cancer. I had a section of my lung removed. What I needed was somebody to care for me. Most of my family had the type of jobs where if you didn't go to work, you didn't get paid. I had two surgeries. For the first surgery, my daughter was able to help me, but she could only be there sometime, a day here, a day there. She went with me when I had the biopsies, into the doctor's offices or whatever. But when I had the actual surgery, I needed somebody there full time to take care of me. Her job did not offer any type of service like that. Now, when they passed it in 2009, I actually did have her stay with me for weeks at a time. The good thing about it was, though, by her getting a partial payment, it allowed her to take care of herself and her family because she has a young daughter. She didn't have to worry about me while I was at work because, when you're at work, you always wait for those phone calls, when you have a loved one at home that's sick. So for her to be able to help me and to also get paid and, have a job or whatever, that was extremely important for us.
Rightfully so. And your story is actually one of many. Studies show that people are better able to heal when a loved one is there to take care of them.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, for your daughter, that's another reason that paid leave is made possible or needs to be made possible. Because imagine the torment that she would have had if she wouldn't have been able to be there for you. I know that was a very conflicting experience for her. So we're so grateful that you were able to be helped by this institution.
Yeah.
So this next question that I have is again for Yarrow. What amount of salary is enough when you need time to care and heal?
Well, I would say that actually the best amount is your full salary, right? I mean, when we did, as I said, the program started at 66%. And when we began to advocate to increase the wage replacement, we were advocating for full wage replacement, which is incredibly important for lower income workers earning minimum wage. They can't afford to lose anything. They have to have a full wage replacement to be able to pay bills, make ends meet, and also the additional expenses. Oftentimes we don't realize that you actually have to pay the employer portion of your health care, of your health insurance. If you have a new baby, you have more expenses. So we really think 100% is adequate, but we actually landed, and we were happy with the 85% that we ended up passing and went into effect of July last year. But yeah, ideally it's 100.
And do you have any stories of any instances where the wage replacement helped people in your state?
The higher wage replacement, for sure. We've heard already, in this past year, of course, with coronavirus, the fact that people could count on at least that 85% when they needed to take extended leave made it possible. Especially we've heard from fathers. Often fathers, there's more of an expectation that they're going to be bringing home their earnings, although households do rely on moms and mothers and women. There is still a barrier for a lot of dads if they can't take home nearly their full wage. And we've heard that having the increased wage replacement amount made it possible for them, for sure.
And that's why we're grateful to have Jerry be a part of this discussion to speak on fathers. Jerry, can you tell a little bit about your story or your personal experience being a new father and needing that time to care for your family?
Of course. Yeah, I was just trying to, I wanted to make a comment on that story there. So my story is just similar to that. I became a parent and I wasn't even aware that I could take paid family leave. And when I was aware of it, I tried to take advantage of it just to find out that I had to return to work very quick. I wasn't aware that I was only getting 60% of my wage. At the time, I was a parent just living paycheck to paycheck. So on 100% of my pay, I was struggling. Imagine getting 60% of that. I was very excited to be home with my newborn and, all these new encounters with her, the first weeks helping out around the house. Very excited just to return to work within a week or two, just because I was not going to cut it. Um, Let alone working two jobs that time around that time, just because I had to make ends meet. So I agree that 100% of the wage replacement is what we need and is necessary in order for those of us who do struggle at times, to bring the um, what we call money to the house and to be able to support our families, because that's, as a male parent, is what I was taught to do. Be able to take care of your family, and I believe that 100% of the wage replacement will be awesome. I'm not the only person that has struggled, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people in the community that not only deserve, because they are hard workers, deserve full wage replacement to be able to take care of their families, but because they are entitled to that, and we pay taxes into that. So, therefore, I believe that 100% of the full pay will be awesome.
Yes, and again, Jerry, you made so many good points. These are hardworking individuals across the country who deserve this paid leave. CNBC actually just released a report that showed the living wage that people needed to get by in every state. And the results essentially showed what you just stated. People need that full wage replacement in order to get by. There's so many low wage workers that are not going to be able to get by on a portion of their wages because their wages were simply just enough to get by. So I'm so glad that we got the point of view of a father who needed pay leave. Heather, I'm going to pivot to you now to ask you a question. How important is pay leave to women's participation in the economy?
Well, I think the title of our panel today really sums it up. Paid leave without pay is not leave, really, especially for women workers and low wage workers here in Pennsylvania. Unlike our colleagues here on the panel in New Jersey and California, we don't have any paid leave in our state. And so, for single moms make up the majority of folks living in poverty in our city, county, state. Over 73% of households living in poverty are single moms. And, a lot of that is because there's no paid leave. And so, we have policies that don't agree with one another. Like in schools before COVID, if your kid had a fever or they threw up that day, then you had to go pick them up, and they weren't allowed to go back to school for 24 hours. But most minimum wage workers don't have a paid sick day. So, what's a single mom supposed to do in that situation? A lot of moms either end up without pay for a day because the public schools are saying they have to stay home with their child, or they lose their job because they have to stay home with their child. So without paid leave, folks really don't have leave at all. And states like ours, for moms, that means moms are losing pay. They are losing jobs. And we also have some of the highest infant mortality and maternal mortality, especially for women of color in the country. Our rates for infant mortality and maternal mortality are actually on par with some third world countries. So, I think that these are workers' issues, especially now with COVID. And we know from, all the data that, the majority of folks who left the workforce, who were pushed out of the workforce, were workers who identify as female, and for them to be able to get to go back, especially now, we're already hearing childcare centers open and then they're closing, and public schools are opening and then they're closing. And here in Pittsburgh, our school district has set a date to open, and they've already delayed that date for 2 more weeks. And they just announced that delay, and we've all been thinking like, what are shift workers supposed to do right now? So, it's really a day-to-day struggle. And I know I've only just mentioned issues around childcare. And actually, our state's fastest growing population are octogenarians, which means we know from MetLife that our average caregiver is actually a woman who's in her 60s taking care of her mother in her 80s. So, paid leave, even before COVID, was something that workers workers from, their teens to their 60s really need to be able to take care of their loved ones in their lives and stay working.
And another thing that it was a great point that you raised. You raised so many, but one thing that really struck me is interesting. I'm from Missouri, and we also have a very low birth weight. We have a high amount of low birth weights, and infant mortality is also at very high rates in Missouri. And I think that another important aspect of paid sick days is that people are missing appointments because they can't take off to go to appointments that they need. Like, it's becoming as serious as, dialysis, of course, prenatal appointments, things that are very important. And I think the fact that, some people feel as if they cannot take off paid sick days to go to their prenatal appointments is lending to that high infant mortality rate. And that's just a horrible aspect that people don't think about. When you think about paid leave and paid sick days, people are not thinking about all the ways that it can trickle down into other disparities that affect women and people of color at higher rates, which are also coincidentally sometimes the lower wage workers. So it's just, again, the problem that it keeps lending to itself until we find a solution for it. So I'm going to take a pause and welcome anyone who just joined the podcast. Hello, this is Ariel from Family Values at Work. I'm joined with some amazing people from across the nation. We have Heather Arnet of the Women and Girls Foundation in Pennsylvania. We have Ms. Permelia of Toney-Boss of the Voices of Workers in the Paid Leave for All campaign. Jerry Sandoval of Parent Voices of California, also of Voices of Workers in the Pay Leave for All campaign. And we also have Yarrow, and she is from New Jersey Citizen Action. So thank you all for joining us today. And again, if you have any comments, if you're watching, you can drop them in whatever platform you're watching from. So this next question I'm going to raise to everybody. Can we have an equitable paid leave policy without job protection? Enough time to care and heal, and adequate pay while on leave? Does that exist? Can we have that, and why or why not? And whoever feels free can go first.
I'll make a comment on that. So, sorry. There's definitely no way we can do that. Job protection, it is very important because we got to be able to take care of our family. Once again, getting back to our family. If I go and take care of my parents who are sick, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to get fired, you think I'm going to need help myself. So I think job protection has to go hand in hand with what we are arguing here for, or trying to demand from government. So that is my point of view. And I'll let whoever was going to talk right now to point.
So you pretty much said what I was about to say. It doesn't work without job protection because you can't take time off and have to worry about whether or not you're going to have a job tomorrow. There has to be some type of job protection because you're already worried about life as it is, to now worry, well, tomorrow, will I have a job? Will I be able to afford to take care of my family? You've got to have some type of job replacement, job protection there.
That is a great point that you both made, because even if you are getting your wages reimbursed for your time off, if they're planning to fire you, or if they're only 2 weeks to do that, that doesn't help you. You're still going to be looking for another job in the midst of a health or life event. So I would love to
totally. I agree. I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I think there was a little lag. Yarrow, we're unable to hear you. Heather, can you go ahead while we wait for Yarrow's audio to level out?
Yeah, sure. I completely agree with everyone who said, it's so hard without job protection. And that being said, Pennsylvania is one of these, what they call at-will states, which makes it feel like, anybody can fire you no matter what, no matter what anybody says. But we also, I think part of what's so important.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, I think when people are trying to plan, if, it's Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was just saying what we've found is when people are trying to get information about their right to take leave, that one of the things at top of their mind
We may have to come back to her. We'll give her just a moment for audio.
Yarrow, maybe if it's okay, I'll just finish my thought while you're figuring out your audio stuff.
Definitely. That's what you have there.
What I was going to say is, while that's true about Pennsylvania and lots of other states, I think part of what's so powerful about the opportunity of a federal bill, right, federal legislation, a federal paid leave program, even if we don't immediately get job protection language in there. I know that's what we're all fighting for. But even if that doesn't happen, but we get a federal paid leave program, we have a federal paid leave program then, which means all employers across the country are supposed to provide it. And I think that in and of itself will help provide that job protection, because right now what we have is these inconsistencies, right? Like either in states like ours where you don't even have a state paid leave program, and so it's just who, like Yarrow said, sort of the employer lottery, or in states that do have it, if your state has it, but the state next to you doesn't, then if your state doesn't have job protection, you're even more vulnerable, it feels like, because those employers have less, it feels like less peer pressure, less accountability. But it's like if the whole country decides to actually be a grown-up country like all the other developed nations of the world and join the rest of the world's developed nations and be a real developed nation and provide paid leave, then it feels like the corporate sort of right to fire someone for taking their right to paid leave will trickle off. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like, yes, we need to fight for job protection in the original language, but I also feel like if we don't get it in that round, we shouldn't not go for paid leave at the federal level, because in some ways getting the benefit at the federal level for our whole country and all the workers in the whole country is also powerful and can help us, make it a norm. Because right now the norm for corporations is not to provide it.
I agree. And as you stated, there are many other countries who have paid leave, countries that would not come to mind as leading countries that have paid leave and have this institution for their workers. And so we need to join that as well. And kind of to also point out what you just said, the difference between New Jersey and Pennsylvania being side by side and not having any type of comparable policies shows that this needs to be something that all people have. You can live 20 miles away from somebody and you have
different one spouse, like even one household. Someone can be, working in Jersey, someone can be working in Philly and have different benefits. It's crazy.
We have that exact story of hi everybody, I'm back. We have a father who was able to take the increased benefit amount, but his wife couldn't because she worked in Pennsylvania. So, that was crazy because he was able to really figure out, his time to be able to stay home with their newborn. She did take some time and had to patch together, her accumulated sick days and then some unpaid leave, which made it really hard for them. And she ended up going back pretty much sooner than he did, which is crazy because, she was also recovering from childbirth. So, yeah, we have those stories, unfortunately.
And that is really unfortunate and somewhat ridiculous. And to even point out something, the relevance of what you just said, August is National Breastfeeding Month. And so there are all these mothers that have newborns that are trying to figure out they might not even have somewhere to pump, which is a different issue. And now they're also trying to figure out, okay, do I have time to see a lactation consultant? Oh, the baby needs me today, but I need to be at work. Well, I want to take a paid sick day because the baby is fussy and they're not taking a bottle. Things like this are affecting mothers this month right now all over the nation in a number of ways. So I'm so glad that you pointed out how ridiculous that is and the disparity, like you said, between the same household. That is not acceptable. We need pay leave for all now. The next question I have is actually aimed both at you all, Heather and Yarrow again. What would fair wage replacement look like in actuality? For example, how can we get this policy, how can we make it equitable for low wage workers who are
Here,
most affected?
I mean, here in Pennsylvania, we learned from our sisters and brothers in New Jersey and Rhode Island and California and other states that came first. And one that, one thing that's lucky about maybe being like one of the last is that we learned from others who went first. And one thing that we did see, as Yarrow said, was low wage workers weren't able to take advantage of those benefits when it was, half of minimum wage is nothing, especially in a state like Pennsylvania where minimum wage is $7.25. And for tip workers, it's $2.50. That's, half of nothing is nothing. So, so here, our state legislation, the Family Care Act that's in our state House and state Senate, has 90%, as our bottom for that 90% of income at a specific for folks who are making minimum wage, and then basically that percentage goes down as your income goes up. So if you're making $200,000, then you can have 60%. But if you're making $35,000, then you need 90%. So it's 90% of your income, and then it goes down as your income goes up. So that's what we think is equitable. And I don't know what you're all doing in New Jersey, but Yarrow.
I mean, we are only about a year into having raised our wage replacement from 60% to 85%. So we will be looking at some of the data and, what we can figure out that has impacted. I mean, we also did not win job protection. It's separate. And it is one of the things that comes to people's mind first when they're thinking about taking leave. So that is a huge factor, as, we were talking about before, and I wasn't able to join in. But, in terms of also financing, I think someone mentioned, taxpayers are paying into it, workers are contributing to it, and we want to make sure that people who are actually on the lower wage are able to afford to take it, as they are contributing. The higher earners are contributing more, but their percentage of what their take-home pay might be lower because of the cap. We do have a cap right now of $903 a week. Just as Heather was saying, that is essentially a progressive way of making sure that higher earners who can't afford to take less in terms of, what they're already earning, are doing that. The other thing we've also found is that the fund that is, the taxpayers are contributing to, that pays out benefits, has been pretty strong. Like, we haven't seen it necessarily weaken. And in fact, what happens is the amount that taxpayers are paying has gone up when the benefit went up, but we're going to see the amount that people are contributing, the percentage of their pay, go down. So we don't see that it has made the fund actually vulnerable at all in terms of the claims that people are submitting. Does that make sense?
It does. And to piggyback off of what you just said, the pandemic, the economy actually took a great hit because of the amount of people and caregivers that left the workforce. So while some people may view paid leave and investing in a childcare as something that is a cost, overall it's going to support our economy, because the more active workers that you have in the economy, not only working, but also spending money because they have enough money and time to care for themselves and their family, the stronger your economy is going to be. So I really love that you made that great point while you talked your out. The last thing that I wanted to say to you all, thank you all so much for joining our conversation today. Did anybody have any last thoughts that they wanted to share in terms of in regards to our conversation?
I just wanted to share, I really appreciated that Jerry was here and shared his story. And, I think part of what's so powerful about gender neutral paid leave, paid family leave, is that it provides that opportunity for men to be caregivers, not just for infants, but for their children across their age spectrum, for their parents, for their spouses. Men are caregivers too. And I think there are so many men who want to be able to provide that care and, need, and that's why this kind of wage replacement and sort of degendering care is so critical, in addition to it also being, you know, supportive of our LGBTQ community and for so many other reasons too. But, you know, I just want to thank you for being, it's sorry that you're like representing, you know, 50% of the population, but it's so important because I know so many men who, you know, are caregivers and want to be caregivers of their family in all the ways that women are too. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Actually, one thing I'll have to say is that the communication between people, it has to do a lot with it. You know, as a male parent, I had no idea that I could take paid family leave. I thought it was just for the females. You know, maternity leave sounds like a maternity mom is the one who gives birth, so therefore they're entitled to this. I wasn't even aware that I could do it myself until somebody informed me of that. Right, so the communication, and that's one of the main reasons I like to do this. You know, come over and get as much information from people like you guys and bring it back to the community, because a lot of times, like you said, males don't tend to do this, and it is important for the males as well, just to take, you know, clear their mind, be able to help out at home, and take care of the families.
I just want to say what I loved about the paid leave program is that it provides an opportunity for a family member to take care of you. When you're as seriously ill as I was, what I needed was somebody that I felt comfortable with, somebody I trusted, somebody that knows my needs and my wants, because I'm very, very picky. So for my daughter to be able to take care of me, I believed made me heal faster, and it made my family feel more secure in the fact that they know somebody good was taking care of me. And I don't think there's anything in the world like having somebody that you love and somebody that really cares about you take care of you. And this program does provide that opportunity for us to have that.
Yeah, and I would just say, you know, care is at the center of being human. It's at the center of what connects us and makes us, you know, happy and, you know, bond and heal. And we shouldn't have to do, you know, calculations and crunch numbers and worry about, you know, how we're going to pay our bills to be able to do that. And so we really just need to make it easy and affordable, and the wage replacement needs to be 100% with job protection for all.
Heather, did you have any final thoughts?
No, everybody, I just agree with all my colleagues here and are grateful for them all sharing their time and their stories, you know, and for the folks who are listening too, you know, and just encourage everyone to keep sharing those stories with those elected leaders over there in DC right now, you know, because it's exciting that they're thinking about doing this and they need to do it. You know, it's sad that COVID made a lot of folks realize how urgent these issues were. I think all of us knew that already. I really appreciate, Ariel, too, how you just reminded so many folks, you know, there are a lot of every day people are making decisions because they don't have access to paid leave. And those decisions add up to long-term health inequities that, that, you know, we all saw have really devastating impacts on our communities. So this is a huge issue for families all over our country.
Definitely. And I know that we are all working to solve it on our different fronts. So thank you so much. It has been so insightful to hear from all of our guests and hear your thoughts and stories during our talk. For those of you that are watching, there are a couple ways to get involved in the movement for paid leave. You can now tell your story to Congress by sharing a tweet. Follow the prompt on the screen, and you can also visit familyvaluesatwork.org to get involved. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.